a desert base. Truth don't hide, it just waits for a face, for a face. Big footprints in a pine-slick path. Bob Lazar files with a government laugh. Court dates lost in a sea of red tape. We ain't 10-4, we just stay awake. True crime tales in a borrowed voice. We speak for the silence, not by choice. Got boots on the dirt and eyes on the skies, digging up stories they hoped would die. Might, truth, and thunder, we don't back down. With a Bible in the glove box and boots on the ground. Aliens, lies, and backroom deals. We break that silence, 'cause the soul feels real. Military broadcast, midnight run, teaching vets how to speak what the war's done. From trigger pulls to microphone stands, from combat zones to healing hands. Public records, missing names, unsealed files, classified games. We chase what's buried, not what trends, and we pray for light at the truth's deep end. Might, truth, and thunder, we don't back down. With a Bible in the glove box and boots on the ground. Aliens, lies, and backroom deals. We break that silence, 'cause the soul feels real. Some chase fame, we chase the facts. Some fold quick, we read the tracks. It ain't paranoia if it's always been there, and we ain't scared to lay it bare. Into the storm. We ain't perfect, but we were made for this form.
Hello and welcome everybody to Into the Weeds podcast here on Military Broadcast Radio. I'm Amber, and I'm so thankful that you're here with me today. I've had a very busy week. I went to Oklahoma. I was actually on my way to Texas to go see my Uncle David, who sadly passed away before we got to see him. And we were in Joplin, halfway to Lawton, so we decided to go to Lawton. And I'm really glad that we did, because we had I had a really interesting experience. I have a video on this channel about a little girl named Athena Hogan, and her picture and her grave is actually in the intro. And been trying to figure out what happened to her since I was 7 years old. The crime happened in 1986. And if you go watch my video, you'll find out more about how I'm loosely tied to the situation. But I was having no luck finding the detective who got assigned the case. He was moved on base on Fort Sill, and so I wanted to make sure I had my ducks in a row before I contacted him. So when I go back this next time for the actual memorial service for my uncle, I'm going to contact him and let him know about everything that I've found out. But God works in really crazy ways, because somebody who's been a part of our family for around 4 years now, and coincidentally, it just happens to be around the same time as when I started actually looking into Athena Hogan's case. This man came into our life, and just so happens that he knew Athena's family really well, and also knew a lot of things that have not been publicized, and things that I knew about, and it just confirmed to me that I was on the right track. And so I'm very interested to see how that pans out. But yeah, that's my week so far. Alora's not here. She She actually wanted to be here, but she is getting the oil changed in the truck, and they had a really long line. So they just got her in now, actually about 10 minutes ago. So she's not able to be here. So I'm sorry about that. But today we have a really great guest, and he's actually a host here on Military Broadcast Radio, and he's the host of Trench Talk, and I think he's got a few other shows, actually. His name is Farron Dozier, and he's actually been on the show before on my birthday. He hung out with us. So we're bringing him back on, though, to talk about his work in being an advocate for Sickle Cell Trait. And I'm going to try and pronounce this again. I pronounced it right earlier. Rhabdomyolysis. Okay. He's gonna explain it. Sorry. So without further ado, we're gonna bring up Farron.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Hello, Farron. And
What's happening? Thank you. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Like I said earlier, I'm kind of excited about Athena's case and knowing more. And so, yeah, I'm kind of doing really good right now. How are you?
I'm doing great today. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to share.
Yeah, you are a man of many hats.
Which one you want me to put on today?
How many shows do you actually have on MBR and off of MBR?
So I have the Trench Talk Black GI Radio show.
Okay.
On MBR, the Farron Dozier show across both platforms with KCA Radio and MBR. And I just shut down a couple other ones, but I think at one point I had like 5 different shows. I had a Christian hip hop talk show. I had a blog talk show. Blog Talk went out of business. So after all these years, that's where I started on Blog Talk in 2009, and they finally went out of business. So I had to download all of my make sure all my files were downloaded from that site. But yeah, I think now I'm down to 2 right now.
Okay.
Yeah, here at MBR and then the KCA Radio, NBC affiliates. Yeah.
So we're going to get into who you are. So I'd like you to just tell me and the viewers who you are and why did you go into the military and what did you do in the military?
Yeah. So today, who I am is that others find their greatness through my self-expression and find their peace through their language, because that's very important for who I get to be when I show up without all these other titles, right? As a person. So I had to go through a lot of layers to articulate that, right? And figure out who is Farron without the rank and all the titles of the things that I'm up to. And then my reason for joining the military was influenced by my uncle. He was in the Air Force Reserves. And I remember one day he just asked me, like, what are you going to do when you get out of high school? And I'm like, you know what? I don't even really know. Like, during the 80s into the 90s was in LA was it was crazy. It was carjacking, like robbing and stealing, killing at will. And like, it was just crazy. And so, we were, our thought process was, are we going to make it to 25? And I'm like 18, I'm 17, 18. And we're like, are we going to make it to 25 with the way, this city is? And so again, he asked me, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm not sure. He said, well, you should try the military. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, try the reserves first, because if you go active duty and you don't like it, you'll be stuck in that contract if it's 4 years or 6 years, whatever. So he's like, go part-time first, try it. If you like it, then you can always transfer over and go active duty. And so I was like, all right. So I did that. I went and signed up initially took the test for the Air Force. And at the time I didn't understand why, but they was like, no, you can't join the Air Force, but you can join any other branch. And of course your first mind goes to, was you racist? Like, what's wrong with this? Like, because I'm black, I can't get in the Air Force. Like, y'all picky, y'all got a quota.
Yeah.
And so I was a little disappointed. And so I went home, and then a National Guard recruiter called and offered me like a $2,000 bonus. And I'm 18 turning 19, I'm like, $2,000 for reserves, and 1 week in a month and 2 weeks a year and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? I'll try that. And so I did. I went part-time. And The start was real crazy because I initially went in to be a medic.
Oh, okay.
And so I did basic at Fort Jackson, went to be a medic. But
Me
during
too.
the last 2 weeks of the medical school, I was playing flag football for the company. We would compete with other companies. And I went out for the pass, and me and the guy collided, and I hit my head and had a concussion.
Oh, wow.
And so I was unable to finish. I got recycled. I was just really in a bad shape. So
Yeah.
called my unit and it's like, hey, you need to find him another job skill or we're gonna send him home. And so I
Oh,
talked to my unit and they were like, you know what, we got a spot for you in the POL department, fuel handler, truck driver. So once you recover, you can transfer. We'll send you to Fort Lee, and then you can do that MOS and come back home. So it was odd. My family was scared and things like that, but I'm like, I'll be fine. And so yeah, I actually eventually recovered enough to go to POL school
that's great.
and then graduated that and came home and just had a great time with an infantry company driving fuel trucks and all that in the field. I love to drive anyway, so it was like, hey, I'm good in what I'm doing. So and then about 4 years into that, I realized that, you know what, I think I like this. Like, I think I
Mhm.
can do this. And so I remember walking into the armory one day and I asked the guy, I want to go active duty, military. He was like, oh, well, we got AGR positions. I'm like, what's AGR? He's like, your active guard reserve, where you actually full time, but you
Yeah.
work for the state.
Mhm.
And so there was a clipboard on the wall. He's like, I think there's a couple of jobs up on the board. So I grabbed the clipboard and there was a supply job
Oh,
for a
yeah.
headquarters company at E4 position. And I was like, I think I could do that, right?
Yeah.
And so I looked at it, but it was due in like 3 days. And so it was like December 26th and it was due like December 30th or something.
Uh-huh.
And so I told him, I said, well, this one, I want to apply for this one. He's like, man, you got like 3 days to get your packet turned in to state, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, what do I got to do? So he gave me the checklist. I went and I put that packet together. I took the picture in my class A's. Like, I did everything that I needed to do in 3 days, mailed it out. And sure enough, they called and said they received my packet and that I was to be chosen for an interview for that
Mhm.
position. And that was 93 into 94. And then they had a freeze.
Mm.
And so I did the interview in March, and then they had a freeze on the positions on the hiring board, and then I didn't get hired until July.
Oh, wow.
So I became active AGR in '94 and did 20 years AGR.
Wow.
Was able to transfer to Michigan, so I had a really good AGR career, and great career overall. Um, until that perfect storm, as we're gonna get into with these little red blood cells that's dancing around behind
Yeah.
us. Yeah, but that was my why, and I'm very grateful for my uncle for recommending that. Um, I retired 24 years of service. Unfortunately, not by my choice,
Yeah.
as we'll get into. And that led me down this whole path. But then to rediscover after all of that, like, that was what God had planned for me, because there's a mission that He had for my life. And so it all made sense way after the fact, though. Way
Yeah.
after the fact. But yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
I was listening to part of your testimony, and you said you did you go into basic training in 19 or no, you were 16 in 1986, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Man, bro, I didn't know you were that old."
Hey. Yeah, I was
I
16
was
then.
7.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm 55. If y'all want to know, yes, I'm
Well, it
55.
looks good on you
Thank you.
because I didn't know you were 55 for sure.
Yeah, nobody believes me. I'm nobody believes that. But hey, I'm here.
Yeah. No. Okay, so yeah, you did have to cut your military career short because of sickle cell trait, correct?
That is
But
correct.
you didn't even know you had it. So could you tell us
No.
about that?
Yeah. So again, I joined at 19. Like I said, it kind of made sense because of why the Air Force didn't allow me in the Air Force, right? And I'll
Really?
touch
So
on that.
you think that's
Yeah. But so I joined at 19, um, but I wasn't told I was a sickle cell trait carrier when that initial physical.
Oh, okay.
So 19, I joined. At age 29, 10 years later, I'm transferring to Michigan to be a supply sergeant for an infantry company, Alpha
Mhm.
125 FIBA. And so when I did that physical in 99, the Air Force base that I was connected to for my medical appointments called me in a panic and was like, "Hey, you need to come back to the clinic." And I'm like, "Uh-oh, like what you find?" And so I go back and he's like, "Do you know you have sickle cell trait?" I'm like, "Nope." "Okay, we just want to let you know you're a carrier." I'm like, wait, hold on. I have a cousin with sickle cell disease. Is it he's like, "No, it's not the disease, you're just a carrier.
Mhm.
Make sure you don't make another person because you can have a baby with sickle cell disease, and you should be fine other than that." And so I was done having my children. I had 3 daughters already, so I was done. And
Mhm.
so in one ear out the other, packed up and transferred to Michigan, like, get about my life.
Yeah, well, you're just a carrier, right? So it's
Well, yeah,
not.
that's the conversation that's been had for centuries,
Mhm.
that we're just trait carriers and we shouldn't have any problems or any complications at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what they said.
Yeah, that's the same with my daughter. She has a genetic disease called alpha-1 antitrypsin disease,
Mhm.
and it's a deficiency in the alpha-1 protein in the liver and the lungs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I'm a carrier of it. My husband's a carrier of it, so
Oh,
that's the way she got it.
oh, wow.
So, yeah. So I know a little bit about genetic disorders.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
know. That's wow. That's amazing that yeah,
Yeah,
that's people don't know these genetics, these kind of conversations are so important.
it's scary.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about your incident.
Yeah, so here we are, had been deployed and I remember looking back after all this happened that I had some complications in my
Mhm.
life. But they were not tied to the sickle cell trait. It was just more tied to um, just pains, just normal growing pains. They told my parents when I was 5 years old that it was growing because I was having pain in my left arm as a child.
Mm.
And they was like, "Oh, he's 5, it's growing pains."
Mhm.
Well, I'm 55. I just had one last night in my left arm, right? So I'm still growing, I guess.
Okay.
So after looking back at these episodes, but the particular one is I was at my Master's Sergeant Academy in 2006 working on my E8 rank. I made
Mhm.
E7 during the deployment, so I wanted to get on the list, not to get promoted yet, but just to get that out the way. So when it was time, and I ended up with 3 MOSs. So I promoted in each one of my MOSs. So the idea was to get on that list so I could figure out which direction I wanted to go.
Uh-huh.
So that morning, like normal 17th year, I got up to do the push-ups, sit-ups, and the 2 mile run. And as I got done with the 2 mile run, I collapsed. But I remember as I turned the corner to that last lap, I heard the instructor 15:45, 50. So I'm like, oh man, I'm 36 years old at the time. I have 17:21 to pass the test, and I'm
Yeah.
hearing 15:40. Then I'm like, oh, I'm doing good. So I didn't even have to sprint. I
Uh-huh.
could have just trotted along, and I would have probably came in like 16 something.
Yeah.
But we're trained to sprint that last lap.
Mhm.
And so my mind, I remember my mind's like, okay, get your best time. And
Mhm.
so I took off to that sprint, and I did feel like this vibration come over my body, like an electrical charge, like a
Mm.
buzz that like come over my body. And I didn't think anything of it as I'm sprinting. So I crossed the finish line, 16 minutes, hands over my head to get air in my lungs, the
Mhm.
things that we're trained to do. And my peripheral got dark, and I'm like, I don't feel well, and started feeling nauseated. And so I laid down on the ground, and when I opened my eyes, everything was spinning like a million miles an hour. So the nauseation and all of
Mhm.
that. So I just closed my eyes real tight, and they called the medics and rushed me to the hospital in the city, Twin Cities. And the doctor comes in, he gives me an IV. He comes back and says, "You ever had kidney problems?" "No." "Well, you do now." And he walks out. And I'm laying in the bed with this IV. My instructor is there with me, and he's like, "What's going on?" Like, man, I'm like, I don't even know what's happening right now, right? And so the doctor comes back in and says, "You know what? It's just a freak accident. Probably dehydration, heat stroke. So I'm gonna give you another IV. you should be fine. Take the rest of the day off
Mm-hmm.
and just rest, and you'll be cool. It did make sense because it's, I collapsed at like 5:30 in the morning. So it's like, how do you get heat stroke at like 5 a.m.,
Yeah.
and all this time and stuff. So it didn't make sense. So I go back to the barracks. They give me the rest of the day off because it was an easy day. And I wake up in the afternoon and I'm worse. Like everything is spinning. I'm throwing up and just almost crapped on myself. Like I was in a very bad state.
Mm-hmm.
And went back to sleep it off. Of course, 16:30 because class is over. So they come back in the barracks, my classmates, and then they see me and they rush me back to the hospital that night. The night doctor does some more blood work and he sees that my kidneys are at 50% each now.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm having renal failure.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees that my creatinine kinase levels, my CK levels or CPK levels, depends. You hear both terms, were 12,000 and rising. And for my age, the CK levels are supposed to be about 150.
Mm-hmm.
So between 150 and 12,000, they noticed that condition called rhabdomyolysis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they determined that I was experiencing in the hospital, was a case of rhabdo.
Okay, and what is that?
Yeah, so rhabdo, anybody can experience rhabdo. Rhabdomyolysis is a skeletal muscular disorder that happens if you overexert yourself. Those myoglobin in the muscles can leak into the bloodstream, but it's also releasing the toxins in the bloodstream from the muscles. So
Okay.
like mercury, negative potassium, and different toxins like that. So of course, when those toxins hit the bloodstream and they hit the kidneys
Mhm.
can't filter the toxins.
Oh, okay.
So that in turns the renal failure and the swelling in the body or the nauseated feeling. So whatever the morning doctor saw was the start of my rhabdo, and I guess he didn't recognize it, or no fault to him. But
Is it rare or is it pretty common?
they keep saying that rhabdo is rare. However, it is becoming more consistent expressing itself even currently. They say about 200,000 people a year experience rhabdo.
Okay.
So my question to the medical community has been, how long does it have to be rare before you take a look at it to see how serious it is, right? Because it can cause sudden death. So if
Mhm.
you've seen in the news, a lot of athletes, high school athletes, military, have died from conditions connected to rhabdomyolysis, and especially like myself with sickle cell trait, we're more susceptible of having the rhabdo at exertion because of the red blood cell that can mutate. My red blood cell, that's a sickle cell trait.
Okay,
And so,
that
yeah.
makes sense. My when I was in PTRP, which was a med hold situation, there
Mhm.
was a kid that had come in to reception,
Mhm.
and on his run, he passed away. And
Mm.
yeah, and I think that that's probably what was happening there. Just from everything that you've said so far, it seems very likely that that's what happened.
Yeah, so the thing with it, is because of the sickle cell trait, that red blood cell can mutate, right? It only lives about 90 days. It doesn't live 20 days. It doesn't live that long, right? And so because it doesn't live that long life of 120 days, it mutates quicker and comes back quicker. But that's
Oh.
because it was designed they say, to combat malaria.
Okay.
So sickle cell trait does have a purpose. It has a
Uh-huh.
purpose in Africa and those parts of the country, because when they got malaria in the past, people would die because
Mhm.
malaria attacks the red blood cells. So they say that the body created this defective gene to
Mhm.
survive malaria. So if I got malaria and 25 to 40% of my red blood cells are the sickle cell trait gene, and they only live 20 days or so, then guess what? It dies off quicker and comes back quicker. So you have an opportunity to survive malaria with 25 to 40% of your red blood cells coming back as the other ones are dying off.
Oh, okay.
So that's the purpose of the sickle cell trait gene. So in that part of the world, they're advocating for not getting malaria and mosquito nets, right? It's a
Yeah.
totally different conversation
Mhm.
overseas than we have here in the United States, because we don't really have a malaria issue here,
Yeah.
right? So there's two different conversations with the same gene.
Okay.
And so that morning, like I said, that night, the doctor diagnosed me as having rhabdomyolysis. I didn't have the cardiac arrest, but I had all the other symptoms connected to of why he
Sickle.
labeled it as
Oh,
rhabdomyolysis.
okay.
Wasn't sickle cell trait related yet. It
Okay.
was only the rhabdo because it wasn't even you didn't think about the trait part.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up being in the hospital 4 days. But about the 3.5 day was where I could finally get up and walk because I had severe muscle damage, skeletal muscular damage, joint damage, the
Mm-hmm.
nausea, the vertigo. Like I had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of real bad symptoms. And so my family came and got me and took me back home. And they told me to go see my regular doctor. And so I did that, and I started seeing went back to the Air Force base that I was connected to, and they sent me out to the community for a doctor because
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't do that kind of work there. And so this one doctor just started testing my blood, making sure that my CK levels. I think they had gotten down to like 600 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was just making sure that they were still going to continue to drop and just kind of monitor me.
Mm-hmm.
And so about 6 months, a year into it, he was like, okay, I need you to go start exercising so we can see if you can get back in, into your routine. And I would go to the gym and get on the treadmill, and it felt like I'd been on a roller coaster ride when I got
Mm-hmm.
done. I
Yeah.
was just out of it, just kind of still groggy, um, motion kind of sickness, all of that, vertigo
Mm-hmm.
and stiff muscles, weak. And so 2.5 years of that, he was like, you know what? You just can't exercise anymore. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like I've seen people with worse injuries, right, that have got profiles
Oh
and
yeah. Mm-hmm.
stayed in. So I'm like, okay, cool. I can't run. I'll do, the bicycle or the
Mm-hmm.
walk. I don't swim. So that myth is real. I swim like a Chevy truck. I swim like a rock, like a rock. And so no swimming. So I'll do the bicycle or the walk, one of those two and be cool. Like, all right, good.
Uh-huh.
So I turned that paperwork in, and when they read the state surgeon read that my paperwork, they were like, "Oh, and we're about to get deployed again." So we all
Oh.
went to the SRP to do our physicals and stuff. So I was like, perfect timing. I can turn my paperwork in and go back to school, get back on the list, go back to school, deployment, all that. And they
Uh-huh.
flagged me after that, did that physical and turned that paperwork in. They flagged me and said that I'm not deployable. I could no longer exercise, can't carry a weapon. I can do anything until
Mm-hmm.
they figured out my condition. And so
Mm-hmm.
that equated to a P4 profile, which said I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And that happened in 2006 September. No, 2009 September. About 3 years later, and after they stopped me from doing a little bit of exercise, my whole body just broke down completely.
Oh wow.
And so by January of 2010, I was stiff as a table. Like I could barely walk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started going to the Air Force for appointments because I'm like, something's wrong with me. I can barely get up. I can barely walk. And so with the military, you got to go to work, but you got to go to sick call. So so like every couple of days, I'm going back to sick call so I can try to figure out what's going on. And
Yeah.
so one day the nurse called me at home and she was like, look, the doctor says we don't know what to do for your health.
Mm-hmm.
So you should go to UCLA Medical Center because they have specialists there. So when we close, call the TRICARE and get them to let you approval to go to UCLA Medical Center. So I debated, and then she did call me back that evening, like, are you gonna go? And I'm like, all right, I'll drive. So I drove to UCLA and checked myself in. And when I got in there, they took me in the back and did all the vitals and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they just panicked and they just rushed me. They like put him in the ambulance and take him to the other facility. and like I was like, what? So they rolled me over to another facility in the ambulance, put me in. Dr. Taylor, shouts out to Dr. Taylor. She's really was a blessing. I'm laid up in the bed and she comes in with this needle and she sticks it in my knee and pulls out this yellow fluid.
Ooh.
And she comes back later and says, oh, you got arthritis. And I'm like, what? So now I'm like laid up in this hospital bed and she's now diagnosed me with arthritis because of the severe muscle.
Uh-huh.
So, and I'll get into that after it all made sense of why, my body was breaking down and I was in that state because of all the physical skeletal muscular damage that I experienced from that exertion injury with the rhabdomyolysis.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't realize that it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So anybody can experience rhabdo, right? There are, when you look it up, you can be on statin drugs like cholesterol medications, and different sprays can cause rhabdomyolysis because of the medication. So medications can cause it. You could be crushed in a car accident, or we're trying to figure out even playing football and the body taking all that trauma of crushing. So even your body being crushed can trigger rhabdo. There are other inherited genes that can trigger rhabdo. There are skeletal muscular diseases that can trigger rhabdo. So I've interviewed people from muscle-bound men who weightlifters to little Asian women who have experienced rhabdo. So there's no particular person, like anybody can experience rhabdo.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of times it shows up in CrossFit. CrossFit gets a bad rap for it because you're going from one exercise to the next, and you're not taking any breaks.
Oh, okay.
You're not giving your body a chance to recover, right? And so sometimes for people, when they go from one rep to another rep to another to another, the body doesn't get a chance to recover, and it triggers that rhabdo.
Okay, that's very interesting. I'm thinking of a few scenarios of people.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how did that then progress into you finding out that the sickle cell trait that you had learned about earlier and kind of forgot putting on the shelf? How did that come about?
Lady, that thing wasn't even on the shelf. It was in the garage, in the box, in the corner, in the dark corner of the garage. I wasn't even thinking about sickle cell trait. So what happened is after the arthritis diagnosis now, so now I got more physical pain. It's gotten worse, and so now I'm having mental pain because now I'm panicking about what's happening to my my body. So I started going to mental health classes at the Air Force Base, and one day I'm on the base. I'm leaving my appointment, and the officer that I served with during the deployment, he was my platoon leader, and I was a platoon sergeant. We ran the POL company, and he's like, "How you been?" It was 5 years. I ain't seen him for 5 years. This is 20. This is again 2010. And he's like, "How you been?" I'm like, "Man, you don't want to know, man." I'm like, I'm not good. I could barely walk. He's like, "No, tell me." I'm like, "Man, I could barely walk. My muscles locked up. I'm going to these mental health appointments right now." And he's like, "Oh man, my muscle locked up on me one time, but I got sickle cell trait. So I got to drink extra water, take these vitamins." And I'm standing there like, "Wait a minute, what? What did you say?" He's like, "Yeah, I got sickle cell trait. I got to drink extra water and take vitamins and things because my muscles locked up before." I said, "Man, I think I have that," because that triggered my thought of 1999 from that physical. So I went back into the clinic and I said, "Hey, can you print off a copy of my physical from 99 that I took here?"
Yeah.
And they said, "Yeah." So they printed it off. I looked it over, and sure enough, I found positive AS in a little box on my physical from 99.
Oh, wow.
And I took that to UCLA, Dr. Taylor, and I said, "Hey, look, I ran into one of my fellow officer friends, and he said this. I got my medical paper from my physical. It says this." And so she was like, "Okay, let me retest you." Sure enough, she retested me, and positive sickle cell trait test. She was able to tell me that 40% of my red blood cells was sickle cell trait, and that when we did the research, the rhabdo and the trait conversation popped up, and then she was like, "Well, this could be the connector to your episode from 06. It wasn't just rhabdo, it was also connected to your trait."
Okay.
And from that moment, that's when I got all that documentation. She put it all together. I turned that into the state surgeon's office, and the medical and the board process, and they were like, "Yeah, you're done. You are done. You can no longer be in the military." And the issue with that was I grew up as an emotional child. I can tell you that today because of the work I've done. Very emotional child. On my sleeve, that people say, "You wear emotions on your sleeve." Yeah, I had a long sleeve shirt of emotions. And what I did was, when I got the email one day that said I was pending discharge,
Mhm.
and no one had contacted me about my status. I'm like, how am I pending discharge when I thought there was a process?
Mhm.
And so I read that, and I made it mean my life is over when I read that statement. And so I called back to the medical. I called my battalion. I called the state, and they were like, "Oh, that's a mistake. You got to go through a medical board first
Mhm.
process." But I had already grabbed my life is over, and my subconscious mind grabbed that and
Yeah.
started to produce evidence subconsciously, right?
Mhm.
And so that led to the mental health portions of it. And so life was over. Suicide ideations, depression, anxiety. When you crack that box open, um, all that stuff is available. And I believed that my life was over. I just believed it was done. And so
Yeah.
just went through a few episodes of thinking about it, attempted a couple, I had my favorite car, right? So they said there's, the willingness to die, the plan, and all that. So I did have a plan. I did have my favorite car, how I wanted to do it. And there was a couple of times I jumped on the freeway and was like, you know what? I'm just gonna just go real fast and just call it a day.
Mhm.
And well, I remember one morning I was talking to my mom. Shouts out to my mom, but my mom's a minister, and I would call my mom, and I'm like, look, I need to talk to you, but she wanted to be the minister. I wanted to talk to my mother. Like
Yeah.
I don't need the minister in
Mhm.
you. I need my mother in you right now.
Mhm.
And I get, of course, she was nervous and was scared for her son. So I get it today. I really do get it. But
Yeah.
in that moment, I'm like, you're not listening to me. So you know what? I'm out of here. And she's
Mhm.
like, what are you doing? You better not do that. And she's on the phone, and I've jumped in my car. I jumped on the freeway, and she's like, what are you doing? You better go back home. And I'm like, Mom, I'm trying to talk to you. You're not listening to me. And I jumped on that on ramp. And as I'm driving real fast, I thought about my daughter,
Mm.
my youngest daughter. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, you
Mhm.
can't leave your child like that. Do you like, what do you? So I'm battling in my head with driving my car into this big rig truck or my daughter, who I
Mhm.
can't do that to her. And
Yeah.
so I pull off the off ramp, and I go back home, and I'm like, this is not working, man. Like, something's going on with me. I don't like how I feel. I ended up going back to the VA. They gave me medication and things like that, and that was worse.
Yeah, exactly.
I
It makes
was
it
like,
way worse.
I'm walking around like a zombie, man. It's like
Yeah.
I don't like how I feel.
Yeah.
And so he was like, okay, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, look, like, I know I play basketball, I play sports, so like I know I got mental toughness.
Mhm.
But that feeling that I was feeling during that space was just something I've never felt before.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you know what? I don't want to take any medication. I
Mhm.
don't want to take any drugs. So he took off the drugs, and into 2011, a friend of mine was taking some personal development education classes, and they saw my state of mind, and they were like, "Hey, you should take these classes that we take
Mhm.
through our work." And I'm like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm not. I don't know. I don't want that." So they asked me about 3 times before I said yes. And the reason why they asked me, because during that transition, I went to a mental health appointment. Shouts out to Dr. Ashley Benjamin. He was a major at the time for the medical base
Mhm.
psychology. And so my original guy wasn't there, was going to be off. So he asked me, do you want to take a break, or do you want to, have somebody come in while I'm on leave? I'm like, no, you better have somebody. I don't want to miss a day, miss a appointment. So they set up with Dr. Ashley Benjamin to come in to replace him for that session.
Mhm.
Dr. Ashley, I go to that appointment. Officer Benjamin brings me in. He's like, so what are you going to do when you retire? I said, well, I have an idea about maybe having a t-shirt brand or a hat brand, selling t-shirts or something, and probably just sit on the dock of the bay and watch the tides roll away and whistle. Right? Because that was my retirement song. You know that song? You know that song? You know that song? Right? So
Smokey Robinson,
I
right?
did that too. Redding, Otis. I
Oh,
did that.
okay, yeah.
I did that too. By the way, I did that. But I told him that was probably, I was just gonna try to maybe do that. Like, I didn't know what I was gonna do when I retired. I was lost. And so he had this book that he had written for college athletes.
Mm.
And he opened up the page and said, "Here, read this." And so when I read it, I'm crying now because it's exactly what happened to me in the military.
Mm.
And it's 2 paragraphs of student athletes collapsing and dying from sickle cell trait and rhabdomyolysis. And I'm reading this. I'm like, "You know what happened to me?" He's like, "Yeah." And it happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets misdiagnosed because they look at it as a cardiac arrest.
Yeah,
But
that's. Mm-hmm.
but what's triggering the cardiac arrest?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the cartoon light bulb over my head popped up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I know why I was born. Like, that's what I said to myself. Like, I know what my mission is. And he's like, "You could be an advocate." I'm like, "What's an advocate?" He's like, "You can actually share your story, right? And educate people, and have your sports brand and sell hats and t-shirts, and that could pay for your travels, and you can share your story and
Yeah.
educate." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "I could do that?" Like, it's like, "Yeah, that's an advocate."
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I went home and I did my research and I started studying, like, oh my God. I just found all this information from the military from the
Mm-hmm.
80s where people had collapsed and died. I found an article from 1912 where a soldier had died. They thought it was Spanish flu and he died. And the researchers were looking for a cure for Spanish flu. And so they went and they remembered that Abraham Lincoln had collected specimens from all the soldiers who died.
Really?
So there's a vault in Washington, D.C. that has specimens of blood tissues from service members that died from different types of diseases that they thought blah blah blah, right?
Interesting.
So
I didn't know that.
right, I got the NPR news recording
Okay.
of that story. So I found that story, and they said the guy went in and he grabbed the tissue samples and tested them, and some of those tissue samples were sickle cell trait. They were mutated red blood cell in the tissues,
Oh,
and
wow.
that soldier was a sickle cell trait carrier.
Mm.
So did he die from Spanish flu, or he died from the exertion of the gene? So they had a whole NPR thing about that. So I
Mm-hmm.
just started doing my research, and I saw that athletes have been collapsing and dying. Like it was a pattern,
Yeah.
and it made sense of what happened to me and this whole process of being medically retired out of the military, and then that what's next, which is a lot of us, our brothers and sisters, look for in life after
Mm-hmm.
that career comes to an end. It's like,
Totally.
okay, why what am I going to do now? My
Mm-hmm.
identity is trapped in this uniform, is trapped in this rank or that job. You look at
Mm-hmm.
professional athletes, is the same. They've been playing football since a child or basketball since a child, and then you make it to maybe the highest level of NFL professional, and then that uniform is done. Then who are you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's a human being flaw, y'all. That's not just us as military or athletes. That's a human being condition of
Mm-hmm.
trying to discover your purpose, or why was I born? Why am I here? We ask ourselves them questions throughout our life,
Yeah.
and so, and our mind brings us to those points, or our spirits brings us to those points. And to be able to grab that and take a look at it, you can, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that seems to be, one of the reasons why a lot of our brothers and sisters in the military complete their life,
Mm-hmm.
because they're looking for that what's next, and that identity is trapped in that uniform or whatever that is. And my value of myself has decreased, or whatever that is. For me, it was my identity crisis.
Yeah, no, I agree. I got
Yeah.
hurt when I was 20 years old in the Army.
Mhm.
So my life was over, to me immediately as soon
Yeah.
as soon as I was told, "Hey, you can't go any further." I was just like, "Oh, dang. Well, that's it. That's it."
Yeah.
And at 20 years old, that's a terrible prospect. And I know I never got down to where I wanted to take my life or anything, but I did worry a
Yeah.
lot
Yes.
about
Worry.
what was going to happen. Thankfully, I met my husband after I got hurt, and he had gotten hurt as well. So we met in the broken platoon.
Oh, come on. That's cool. That is
Yeah.
cool. No way.
Yeah, so I had
Wow.
I had something to look forward to after leaving the military, and and I decided to work with children and youth in ministry, and that's been a wild
Wow.
ride.
Yeah. So let's can we dance right there for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So we as human beings, as people, don't realize that stress is a killer by itself.
Mm-hmm.
The worrying, right? The
Yeah.
worrying is not healthy, and a lot of us suffer in silence. That's why I said this is not just a military athlete conversation. This is a human being flaw that is part of us as developing as being a person. There are things that we worry about consistently to the point where it can make you sick and it can hurt you. And worst cases, if you get to the places like I was at, disappointment in yourself, in myself, despair,
Mm-hmm.
self-loathing,
Mm-hmm.
and then what came out of my mouth was, why bother?
Yeah.
Right? Because you got hope and hopelessness mixed in together,
Yeah.
and it leads to those different ones. And I can, like I said, I can articulate it to you because I've been at it for 15 years to
Yeah.
stay alive, right? To
Yeah.
really figure out who Farron is, and my what's next in this ministry that God has given me. But I still deal with that. I got more in the negative than in the positive years, right?
Right.
And so those negative years still suck up the future sometimes. And so I catch myself, and I have these tools, that we can talk about to figure out, hey, you know what? That's not a real thought today, bro. Like you good. So stop
Yeah.
worrying. And so my worries came from the future of uncertainty, because
Mm-hmm.
I lived so far in the future when that career was coming to an end and my life was over, as I made
Mm-hmm.
it mean. It was like I got divorced because my life is over. If I hit my toe, if I got a flat tire, because my life is like so your brain is so powerful that it collects that negative
Yeah.
information to prove to you, yeah, you're not good enough. You're not
Yeah.
worth it. You're not smart enough. You're not, yeah, you are not. Yeah. And so if you don't understand that and learn and do the work around that, I, for 40 years, I thought that voice in my head was Farron,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I was the one observing all of that chaos.
Yeah.
Like, why can't I stop this? But my mind is like, no, we're done, bro. Let's go jump off the bridge. What if you jump off the roof? You think you land on your feet? Like stupid stuff like that. Like, what?
Well,
Like, why would
I have those thoughts. Just I have weird random thoughts where I'm like, hey, if you did this, what would happen?
Bro, there's called gravity. Remember gravity? What are you talking about? And I'm looking at the roof. I'm on the roof, like on the balcony, like, I wonder if I can land on my feet. Like, just stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, what are you thinking about, man? And so I recommend to all of my brothers and sisters at arms, but people, like, cognitive behavior. We talk about mental health and how important it is, and we talk about it like a cliche, like, oh, it sounds good. No, let me tell you, those classes, if you're willing to put your life in those conversations,
Mm-hmm.
like I did with the personal development education, like I did with the Bible, like I had to put my life in those conversations and you might have to rediscover some new truths. Like I said, I had to, at 40 years old, when I took that personal development class, I had to sit in that chair and say, I'm willing to challenge the first 40 years of my life. I'm
Yeah.
willing to take this education, apply it to my life, to these stories that I have in my head, to see if they're the truth. They were my truth, but they wasn't the truth. And I sat there and I did that weekend class, and I walked away like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I made up a lot of stories that just wasn't true.
Is that what you were alluding to in your message when the other day when you sent me something about finding out after 40 years?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah. And that's, to me, that's the work. That's the work of the Bible.
Yeah.
When you read the Bible, it says, renew your heart, repent and renew your heart, turn from your ways you're thinking, and take on his thoughts. And let me tell you, I started that process at 41. And I've been in that education for 15 years, going on 15 years. I ended up taking the cognitive behavior, and my baby sister, who's in therapy, who's a social worker and therapist, she was the one that recommended that to me in 2016 on one of my talk shows that me, her, and my mom was on. and I'm expressing myself because and I'm starting to get some clarity. And she's
Mhm.
like, on her air, she's like, bro, you need to take cognitive behavior. I didn't take it till 4 years later, but
Mhm.
my baby sister who was in therapy,
Mhm.
therapist in that work, saw that in me 4 years before I took it. And she's like, bro, you need to take the way you're talking, you need to take CBT because the personal development education was transformation. I mean, transformative, right? Trains
Mhm.
changed my life, transformed it, but it doesn't deal with the thought process.
Mhm.
It says you have feelings and emotions, you don't have to become them, right? So I
Mhm.
learned in that education, I have all these thoughts, I don't have to respond to them. I could just
Yeah.
be with the thought and just set it aside and not react to it and take that action because I thought it and then do it. So I learned that much, but it was still like a piece missing. Like there's like, what do I do with these thoughts though? And the cognitive behavior, that
Yeah.
curriculum takes it. You put that story in there and you realize that is it exaggerated, habitual, like how true is it? What percentage of it is the truth? And it was like, oh my gosh.
My cousin, it's so funny you're talking about all these classes because my cousin takes these classes because she's incarcerated for 25 years.
Mm,
And she's taking these classes over
mhm.
and over and over
Yes.
and over again. And she'll come and talk to me or, she'll call me up and talk to me about something. And she's always like, everybody's got to take CBT.
I'm telling you, shouts out to her. I'm
Yeah.
telling you. I'm Amber. I'm telling you that the landmark class was so I broke my life out into three categories I live from. I had to get a new ideology, a new philosophy, and a new theology.
Okay.
And that's how I live. I live on those three prongs because if I go to any one of those in a moment of despair or disappointment, I can go to either one of those and bring myself out of that dark space.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned. A three-legged stool is sturdy, right? You can sit on the three-legged stool, right? It has
Yeah.
three legs, so it's sturdy. So when I learned that, I started doing my life work, and I'm like, I need a new ideology, I need a new philosophy, and I need a new theology. And
Mhm.
so the ideology was the CBT because when I
Mhm.
put those stories in there about ideas and where they were coming from, and they were childhood thoughts and just unrealistic, and no
Mhm.
one loves themselves 100%. So then how much do I love myself? Or I don't trust women was my conversation from a
Yeah.
childhood experience. So, but I'm living my life. I don't trust women. But then that class at 50, when I took it, like, well, what percentage do you trust women then? If you say you
Uh-huh.
don't trust women, what percentage? Then I had to tell the truth. What percentage do I trust women? Well, I might trust women 80%. So then I can no longer say I don't trust women anymore, right?
Yeah.
So it even corrects how you talk.
Okay.
And the landmark classes also did the same thing. You got to watch what you say out of your mouth because you start to believe what you say because you have collected corrupted information, right?
Mhm.
That of course you're always going to be right because your mind is protecting you because you don't want to experience that trauma or that pain, so you're always going to be right.
Mhm.
So I have to stop describing life.
Mm. Mhm. So now,
And
did you have to do an exercise where you wrote out your obituary or your eulogy?
no, we didn't do that one.
Oh, okay, she had to do
No.
that one?
Oh yeah. No, we didn't. I haven't had a course that does that one. No.
I don't know what course she was taking, but she
Yeah.
had to do that, and, her mom and her children had to write a eulogy for her, and she had to listen to them read it to her.
Yeah. I can see why it makes sense though, because you know, s- in that education, a lot of times how I viewed myself, like
Mhm.
this is like one of the biggest breakthroughs I had with my mom because I asked my mom, "How do you see me as your
Mm.
son?" And when she said what she said, I didn't see myself like that. So I told her, "This is how I see me." She's like, "Where you get that from?"
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, how do you look and think about yourself in such a negative context, right?
Mhm.
And I could see why to write that letter because you in your obituary, people are going to read your life. They're going to tell your
Yeah.
story, right? And so
Yeah.
if you end up, your parents and your family might have a totally different view of you that's empowering, and you
Mhm.
have this disempowering context of yourself.
Mhm.
That's an eye opener. Like, wait a minute, you see me as this great, and you love me, like, and
Yeah.
like what? And some people have never heard that,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's a beautiful tool, right,
Mhm.
to experience, because sometimes our mind just keeps us so trapped in ourselves that you don't think I'm not, all the I'm nots,
Mhm.
right? And that overpowers you, and it's like nobody cares. Like,
Mhm.
what is my obituary going to look like? What's going to be in the dash? And we
Mhm.
think that it's all negative, because especially if you went to prison, it's like I'm a bad person, or they don't love me, or whatever. So I
Mhm.
definitely could see why that was a good tool to use. Yeah, I
It was
like
a
that.
good exercise for her,
Yeah.
and she's had to do quite a few very difficult exercises, and she even had me go on Google Earth and find her old childhood homes and take pictures of them and send them to her so she could process, what she was feeling in those moments when she lived in those homes.
Beautiful. I'm trying
Yeah.
to tell. See, I was able to do that though, right, in the education, that I've done, and so when I took those classes, and I discovered the stories that I made up
Mhm.
about my career being over,
Mhm.
about my parents, about myself, about being in elementary school and being in high school, and the breaking up with the girlfriend, and what I made that mean, like all the different meanings
Mhm.
that the brain is designed to do to keep us safe, but
Mhm.
it also hurts us at the same time. So we think
Yeah.
we're being safe and protected by the thoughts and the behavior, but it's also hurting us at the same time. So
Mhm.
that's great to hear that she was able to go through those processes. And I'll say this: my biggest breakthrough transformative experiences is when I allow my body to experience that pain again.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
no, I didn't.
I know that when I'm about to have a transformative experience in a trauma, I allow my body to experience how that all the body sensations, and the stomach ache, and the
Mhm.
nervousness in the knees, and I'm telling y'all, please, it works. It's freedom on the other side of that pain. I promise you, it is freedom on the other side of that pain. But you just got to be willing, and especially in a space that's, that you can trust, that those
Mhm.
curriculums, those educations. But you've got to be able to allow your body, because your body keeps the score. Your body remembers those sensations just the same as they happened yesterday.
Mhm.
And so I've experienced that a great percentage of my breakthroughs is when I felt it in my body. I'm like, okay, I'm experiencing all that pain again right now.
Mhm.
And when it passes, it's like the sky is brighter, the colors are brighter, because you're not in that dark space anymore from that trauma.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, yeah, I've been through a whole lot, and like I was telling you the other day, I was extremely embarrassed about myself and how I grew up, and I was in a lot of denial, and I kind of like pushed a lot of things out, and created this whole new, not history or anything like that, just not addressing any of it really, just not
Yeah.
even, talking about it much, or, I would talk about certain things, but I held a lot back. And since I've been on this podcast, definitely, I have let a lot of it out, and
Yeah.
it's refreshing to just vocalize it sometimes,
Yes.
and I do this podcast for cognitive therapy,
Yeah.
to get my mind working again and get me to be able to speak again without completely losing track of where I'm going, which I
Yeah.
do a lot, but that's all right. I'm working
Yeah.
on it.
That's how I got into Blog Talk in 2009. My buddies, during that depression and those phases of depression, I lost interest in sports. I was a huge sports fan. I mean, we show up at the bar, it was like cheers. The drinks are there, the food's ordered, like we were regulars.
Uh-huh.
And when that started to go away, I found myself just laying in the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And then my buddy's like, "Man, what's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Man, I don't know. Like, I don't feel normal." He's like, "Man, you know, I don't know where he found it, but he's like, "Man, you should do a talk show. I seen people on this internet radio stuff. You should go do a talk show or a sports show or something, like get your mind occupied." And so I did. I one day I went and I looked up and I'm like Blog Talk, and it was like back then it was like 2 hours for free. Like it was crazy insane. And I found a guy, shouts out to Mr. Gold. He was in Boston and I was in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And I found after I decided to do the show, I went on Facebook and I found he went by Sports Log, and his Facebook page was just full of all kind of sport. I mean, you name it, the guy had sports on deck.
Mm-hmm.
And I reached out to him and said, "Hey man, look, this is who I am." I'm like, "I'm trying to create this talk show. Would you like to host a show with me?" And he did. And it
Awesome.
would be, he's 3 hours ahead, so it was like 7 o'clock at night. It'd be 10 o'clock his time.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd be on the radio, and I wasn't talking. He was doing most of the talking. I know how to talk trash,
Yeah.
right? But I didn't watch sports anymore, so I don't know
Mhm.
what was going on the current affairs of sports. I don't even today. I don't really pay attention. But
Yeah.
what I found myself was it allowed me to live into that next episode with him, and that was what this podcasting now they call pod. Back then was internet blog talk, internet radio, internet TV.
Mm-hmm.
Was it helped me. It
Mhm.
literally, I don't want to say saved my life, but it definitely gave me the space to live into those each episode. So I didn't want to, complete my life anymore. I wanted to, okay, what's the next? And I got to create the show, like I got to do all this stuff, and so that occupied my mind, right? As you're
Yeah.
saying, man, people use music as therapy. Like there's different things that you got to be willing to just find out what works for you,
Mm-hmm.
and that might be enough to get your mind occupied on something. Whether it's arts or painting or whatever that is, and it just happened to be Blog Talk Radio back then,
Mm-hmm.
and it turned into this hobby of surviving life, into going to school for radio and TV broadcasting, and having a plethora of shows. I got all kind of shows in my head that I could be on the radio right now 7 days a week for 4 hours, because I got so much music and so much different topics that I could really do a show every day.
Yeah,
Like I
I
really
understand.
could. At least 2 hours a day, every 7 days a week, I could do a talk show. I have so much, but that's because I was willing to look in my life and not just think that nobody cares about that stuff.
Yeah.
No, actually, there's a conversation, and again, how I got to be in front of you, because that sickle cell trait, when I discovered that Dr. Benjamin said to me, I went from defending this country to defending the whole 3 million people plus have sickle cell trait across. It's a global conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So now I found a community of people that I didn't even know existed,
Mm-hmm.
that I was connected to with my inherited gene, that needs to hear my voice because of the complications. And now, even today, is sickle cell trait benign? It's been said that it's benign. There's no problems. Well, guess what? That is not the case.
Mm-hmm.
It's been in the medical books for years that
Mm-hmm.
sickle cell trait carriers can have, under extreme conditions, have these type of complications. Not sickle cell disease, because you have to have 2 copies of the gene to have the disease or the anemia.
Mm-hmm.
But 1 copy, the body is doing something with that 1 copy, and they've known it. I'm just grabbing the information and delivering the message
Mm-hmm.
with my story that's connected to the message. That's all I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
people don't know.
yeah, and like I told you, from Ancestry.com, at least, I haven't had my actual doctor do it, but
Yeah.
on Ancestry, it says that I carry sickle cell and I carry Tay-Sachs.
Are you serious? No.
Yeah, I've told you this before. We had a
I don't
conversation.
remember. Wait, I don't remember the taste. I don't remember that.
Yeah, but I'm not Jewish in my heritage, and I'm 0.1% Gambian. That's
Hey. Wait, so
But-
you telling me that you have some documents that say you might have Tay-Sachs and a sickle cell trait gene?
Yeah, that's what
Tay-Sachs.
Ancestry.com says. I did the DNA health thing,
Yeah.
and it came back with would be a carrier for Tay-Sachs and a carrier for sickle cell.
But when you say your daughter, your child has another type of inherited.
She has alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. So I have the MZ phenotype.
Uh-huh.
And my husband has the MZ phenotype, and so my daughter is ZZ because she got the Z from him and the Z from me.
Shit. So this is why I like I said, I didn't remember the Tay-Sachs portion of it because I compare in a positive way of the Tay-Sachs gene and the Jewish community and us as the African American community, which are number one. But there's anybody can have sickle cell trait today. It doesn't matter what's your skin color. But how the Jewish community handled the Tay-Sachs, they made it mandatory that you will not, if you're going to marry another Jewish person in the community, you have to have a blood test done to make sure that you don't both have that Tay-Sachs gene, because they were having about like 5,000 births back then of the disease, the Tay-Sachs disease, and they reduced it to about 1,000 per year. I don't know what it is now. So I called the Tay-Sachs organization and talked to the guy, like comparing, like how did y'all do this? And he told me like our community came together. Like we came together and we wanted to make sure that we prevent this disease from happening in our families.
And that's
it's
what
not
you're
a
trying
bad
to
thing.
do.
Yeah. And it's not a bad thing. But I'm gonna say this: in a culture of my descent, with all the history that's being told, right? And you go back to slavery, you go back to the Jim Crow era law, like you go back to all those fractures, emotional fractures. This conversation is just one of those emotional fractures because people they're afraid of being discriminated against if you have an inherited gene that can cause problems. So it's already the sickle cell community that have complications, and it's a real disease. But imagine having 300 million people plus with the trait that also causes complications. Now you can discriminate against more Black people because we're majority, right? And so you have all these different intertwining conversations, but what's the value of life? Right? And to me, that is, I knew that coming into this conversation that I had to go against the whole grain of years and years and years of what a sickle cell trait carrier was and the health connectors to it. And but it's been in the books. So I'm not making it up. It's been there. There just hasn't been any research done. And I'm from my part of that conversation, I'm delivering the message for that. And for some people, it's like, you can't say that because what if that person can't get a job? They get tested for trait and now they can't be a pilot, or they can't be work a particular job because I said, but wouldn't you want to know that though? But wouldn't you want to know that if you can't go hang out in Denver, Colorado because the air is thin over there, right? And if you go there and you start having some health problems and you don't know why, it could be that your sickle cell trait gene or your red blood cell condition that needs more oxygen than normal, you're not going to get that in those high altitude areas. Like, wouldn't you want people to understand that?
Yeah, we actually found my husband's brain tumor because we went to Colorado on a youth camping trip, and he was on the mountain and it started building pressure in his head and dropped I think his blood pressure went way high. Yeah.
Went
really,
up.
really high. And basically had like a mini stroke or whatever. And he gets there to the hospital and they're like, yeah, you got a brain tumor. So he hasn't been tested for it, like for cancer or anything like that. But they're letting it, they've let it grow for a year. And actually in a few days, we're going to go see if it's growing any bigger and what we need to do about it.
Amber,
But yeah,
wow.
But yeah, just going to Colorado is how he found it. If he had not gone to Colorado, he probably wouldn't have found it.
You see, and so this is why, sickle cell trait is just it's just one red blood cell condition out of thousands, right? There are
Yeah.
thousands of different types of red blood cell conditions. You got thalassemia, C trait, D trait, OARAB, Monroe, beta
So
thalassemia.
what is the issue or disorder or whatever where you produce too many red blood cells and then you get bad headaches and then you have to give blood? What is that?
So that so the thalassemias, the alphas and the beta thalassemia depends on, so they have alpha, major, minor. So you got to know which one, but some of the alpha thalassemias you produce too many red blood cells, right? And then you got to have a friend in the Philippines. He was in the military. After I was sharing my story in the service, he was like, man, and his sister has thalassemia disease. And I'm like, bro, have you ever checked to see if he was a carrier? No, man, I don't have none of that. Well, guess what? Before we got out, he started having issues working out, and his thalassemia trait was producing too much red blood cells, so he was having to take blood out of his body.
Yeah, my husband has that. Yeah, my husband has that. So when we first got together, he had to go and give blood, and yeah, they did some kind of weird thing with it. I don't even know, but yeah, for a long time he had to go get blood or he would get a massive headache. And finally it quit happening. It hasn't happened in a long time, but
yeah. So yeah, there's some alpha genes that they produce too much red blood cells, not enough red blood cells, or smaller red blood cells. So now you don't have enough oxygen in your red blood cells. Those are the thalassemia. And then the C traits, the C trait crystallizes when it gets expressed. That red blood cell just crystallizes, and so each type has the way that protein expresses itself is how they label if it's a sickle cell trait. That's how they know what type of red blood cell condition you have, because of the way that protein expresses itself.
Okay, yeah, and with my daughter, yeah, and with my daughter, it's the protein, the deficiency of the protein. Yeah, I mean, genetics is wild.
Wow, I tell people, you get 23 chromosomes from each parent, so you don't know unless you, and we don't have these kind of conversations. Like these are very important, especially when you're trying to get married and have a family. You want to ask more questions about your history, and not just I love your eye color, but like where are y'all from? Like where your DNA from? Have you checked? Do you know? Like those are conversations that we want to have, so that people can really have a choice.
Well, yeah, and even in getting pregnant with your partner. So like I'm RH negative. So I have to get a shot because my husband is positive blood type. So back in the day, people's children just used to die because they didn't know what was going on.
They didn't know, exactly, Amber. And so it turns out for me to be, sickle cell trait is a public health issue, right? And it's a global conversation, and I'm just thankful, when I go to my theology piece of my life and being connected to God and Christ and allowing the Holy Spirit to just lead me through these conversations, that I was born for this conversation. Like, like in my mother's womb, God gave me this through all of my ancestors, right? So it passed down. It came from my dad's side because my dad had it. So it came all the way from my dad's side of the family to me to be the one to deliver these conversations. And so I still wake up days like, what am I doing? Nobody cares about that. So my mind goes, my subconscious mind, you're not good enough for this conversation. What are you doing? Like, and all the negative chatter that comes with that. It's like, nobody cares about this, bro. Like, what are you doing? Nobody's gonna donate to your organization. Nobody cares. That's a black gene. Nobody cares about. Like, you have all this stuff that comes up, and I'll be like, what am I even doing, man? But then I remember, like, this is and guess what? It's not for the whole world.
No.
God gives us our message to deliver to a certain group of people that need to hear that conversation. So I stopped worrying about giving it to the whole world and just show up. And even if it's not, even if I go to an event, like I advocate for lupus and I advocate for other causes, So I'll go to the event and support, and they'll be like, "Oh, what brings you here? Or you have lupus? Oh, I'm a supporter.
Mhm.
Well, who are you?" And in that space, I get to share. Oh, this is what I'm
Yeah.
up to. And then
Mhm.
if I say I'm a sickle cell trait advocate, whatever, somebody might be like, "Oh, I think I like," and so I don't have to broadcast it. Like I don't have to be like, "Oh, I'm a sickle cell trait advocate." Like no, you just when I introduce myself, it's a part of my introduction. And for those that
Mhm.
want more information, they ask me. For those that don't, I'm okay.
Mhm.
But if in our minds we want to reach the whole world, and everybody's gotta know, it's like no,
Yeah.
that's actually not. You're gonna be so driven that you're gonna be unhealthy.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's like
I've seen
find your
many,
space.
many people fail because they want to go international or
Yeah,
whatever, and
right.
it's like, come
Exactly.
on.
No, it's funny because I'm like my mind. In my personal development class, I learned the brain is so powerful. It'll tell you that over there is better than over here,
Mhm.
and
Grass is
you
always
will
greener on the other side.
you will, and I find myself like I should go to uh, Arizona and do a sickle cell trait talk, and I got 15 high schools in my own neighborhood that I haven't even talked to in years. It's like so. Yesterday, I realized I'm like, why is that? Why do I feel like I got to go somewhere else to
Mhm.
do a talk when I have elementary, middle school, high schools right here in my county that I
Yeah,
haven't even reached out to yet? But I
and a
want to
lot of
go somewhere else.
yeah, and a lot of us aren't community minded anymore because we're not
Yeah.
in the town that we grew up in usually. I guess you
Right.
are, but I'm definitely not in the town that I grew
No,
up in.
I grew up an hour or so away from here where I landed,
Yeah,
but yeah,
and so you kinda have a disconnect from the community.
yeah.
I know my children have no sense of community because, they lived in Florida, and that was just a whole different ball
Right.
game. So I think just building up our own communities,
Yes.
doing work in our own backyards is way more effective than trying to be, countywide or nationwide or whatever. Just do you in your own space.
Yeah. And when I found that peace, at least the level of peace that I got where I realized that, and there's no instant gratification in this work too, right?
No.
I had to get revelation from that from God. Like, look,
Mhm.
he told me, like, look, you're gonna share your story and you may hear crickets.
Well,
And
sometimes.
people may not even think that they're listening. You may not people think they're listening to you. Like they
Mhm.
might not even want to ask you no questions. But guess what? It's like throwing that rock into the lake and it ripples out.
Mhm. The
And
ripple effect.
he proved it to me. He proved it to me many a times that I shared a story over here, and it came full circle that someone calls me and says, "Hey, I was talking to so and so, and they said I need to talk to you about such and such." I'm like,
It always does.
I
It
was like,
always
"What?"
does.
Like that was like 3 years ago. They're like, "Yeah," but they told me that, and I'm like, so I had to even find peace in my own heart to say, okay, this is not you're not gonna always get instant gratification.
Mhm.
And so don't give up because you don't get the response that you think that you should get, the admiration that you think you should get from people when you go on and have your talks. Even
And
if it's I I give the same energy if it's one person or 10,000. Like it's
Mhm.
the same conversation. I don't shortchange it. It's the same conversation because you just never know who needs that one person in that room that needs to hear that conversation that day. And if I
Mhm.
shortchange it, or I feel like, well, it's only like 5 people here, so I'm not gonna give my all, or I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say nothing. No, that's not how that works. So the I had to learn that it's not instant gratification. Like
Mhm.
this is your mission, this is your message, and deliver it
Yeah. And
regardless. So
true advocacy, you're not gonna be making money. You're not going to be famous. True advocacy is doing the work that nobody sees
yeah,
and nobody pays attention to. That's
yeah,
true advocacy. And
all
if
day.
if you can understand that and live in that and be content in that, then it's a wonderful world to live in.
I mean, that's why I know, you know, in my mother's womb, God gave me this message because he blessed me to go through that whole military experience
Mm-hmm.
and took care of me financially.
Mm-hmm.
So my, and that was my biggest worry because I was in E7 at the time. Remember, E7 back then, I was in $90,000, $95,000 a year. I was living the life.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I'm retiring. Like, yo, kick me out. Like, how much money am I gonna make? It's like, oh my god, I'm like $3,000 a month. How am I gonna go from $7,000 to $3,000? Like, and then so with the worry, right, the future
Yeah.
of uncertainty, living in a can't control the future,
Mm-hmm.
and he took care of me. And
Yeah.
I do this work if I have to spend my own money. When I first
Mm-hmm.
started, I didn't have any income grants or nothing, and I was
Mm-hmm.
driving up to speak. I would go places because it was important. I could book my own flight, use my own credit card, use my own military check
Mm-hmm.
until somebody. And I say that for those listening because the beauty of it is if you wait to get the grant, you don't
It's
you
never
don't have
happened.
you don't have any, and you don't have any work to show. When I
Yeah.
got my first grant, I had from 2010 to 2015. I had 5 years of proof that I have been doing this work, even though I had no grant. I had shows and travels and brochures and speaking engagements that I could say I've been doing this on my own dime because it
Mhm.
became work. It's not a job. When you find what you love, it's not work. It's not a job. It's life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
No,
found that in that trait talk.
no, it's true. And, when, if you're given a little bit and you do well with it, God gives you more.
Oh, yeah.
But you've got to,
You
do
gotta
it with,
manage a little bit. You gotta manage a little bit first.
yeah, you got to do that with the intention of just doing it for the right reasons and
Yeah.
everything, and not doing it for anything other than you're actually genuinely passionate about what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so I tell, and so when I speak with when I speak at the base where I collapsed at, I share the whole aspect from my trait to the mental health piece because I remind them that this military, this is what you get to do. It's not who you are. So
Mm-hmm.
don't lose sight of who you are as a person in
Mm-hmm.
this uniform. Connect yourself with the community, connect whatever you care about. Find something outside of this uniform. So when you do transition out, then this job is done, you found something else to live into and not
Mm-hmm.
just your identity trapped in the camouflage. Because we all miss the camaraderie. We miss that. I
Mm-hmm.
miss that still. I don't miss the BS, but I definitely miss the
Yeah.
brother and the sisterhood, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
still, to this day, I've been retired almost 13 years, and I still miss that part of the service.
Mm-hmm.
But if you find a community of people that you connect to, you can transition that over into that and have that love for people,
Yeah.
and not just we always gonna take care of our brothers and sisters in arms, but then now you're connected to a community of people,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the beauty. So your mind doesn't think that you're by yourself. Like I'm the only one dealing with these stuff. No, man, we all, no one escapes that affliction.
No,
We're
they
all
don't.
gonna have some thorn,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes God will deliver us from that affliction or that thorn, or sometimes He'll give it to us to remind us that I gave you that thorn and you have a message for that thorn, and I need you to deliver that and give
Yeah.
me the glory in the midst of the pain. Give me the glory in the midst of you don't feel good. And
It
so
keeps you humble.
right. I'm trying to tell you, it's like, all right, man. It reminds me while I'm alive.
Exactly.
If I'm still feeling pain, that means I'm alive. And
I
I
know
live
I'm
in a
alive
7.
today.
I live in a pain 7, and I'm like, when it gets to a 9 or 10, I'll be like, I don't really complain because now you go back to the military mindset. You don't go to sick call. You don't talk about your pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have that, but I live with a 7, but
I
I
do
don't say
too.
anything out loud until like if it's a 9. When you get to like 9 or 10, then
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh. They're like, what's wrong with you? Nothing. But for the 7, I just learned to bear. I could bear the 7s. 7s,
Yeah,
8s,
every day.
yeah. 9s and
Yeah,
10s, I'd be like, ooh.
a 10 is meningitis for me. So that's bad. It was
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah. My whole body is still inflamed. So I got inflammation, skeletal muscular damage, joint pains and damage, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's the life that I live, and
Yeah.
people are like, oh, you look good. Yeah, I said, all my pain is inside. Though you can't see it,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to even say anything unless you you might notice how I walk that day. Like, "Ooh, why
Exact-
you limping? Or why you walking like that?" So, but
Yep,
yeah,
getting
it's a blessing.
up. Hey,
Hey,
CJB, it's good to see you. It's good to see you too, Hakab, and the good Nunya. And let's see who else. Okay, that was it. Good
yeah.
to see you guys.
But people just need to know that these inherited gene conversations, they are so important. My buddy
They really
Jody, we advocate together, and he grew up thinking that he had sickle cell SS his whole life,
Mm-hmm.
and then a couple years ago, the new doctor says, "Oh, you have sickle beta thalassemia." Well, that's so now he's got to go and rethink and relearn another type of disease, and now his siblings who thinking he's the only one that has sickle cell SS. What if they also have sickle beta thalassemia? So now he's got
Mm-hmm.
to educate his whole family all over again, and he's older than me. He's in his late 50s.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I tried to educate my family on alpha 1 antitrypsin deficiency, but they all look at me like, okay, well, if we got it, whatever. I mean, a couple of them have been tested, but as far as I know, no one's actually been a carrier or have it. So, but yeah, it's and
So your
Hakab,
mom or dad had it. When one of your parents had it.
my dad did, and
Dad did.
Hakab, they actually thought that it was cystic fibrosis at first. Actually, they thought it was quite a few things, but they did test her for cystic fibrosis, and
Yeah.
luckily she, well, by the grace of God, she is the healthiest one that they had seen in 2000, at least in the year 2000. She was the healthiest one that they had ever encountered.
Wow.
So, it's yeah.
I have a friend. She has CF, cystic fibrosis, and her first child, she had really young. The dad had it, so that baby lived to be like about 3 years old.
Mhm.
But she's a trait carrier,
Mhm.
and her CF expresses itself like the disease. Like my trait expresses itself with the pain that I have. Her CF gene produces the mucus like as if she has the disease, and she has she has lung issues and breathing treatments and things like that, as if she's not just a carrier, but as the type of the CF disease,
Mhm.
right? And so again, the medical community, they only know what they know, right? And so what are those copies of those one genes doing to our body? They got to be doing something. You just can't
Mhm.
think that, oh, I'm only a carrier status and it's not doing anything. You got to do some more research. And a lot of times when I meet people that have sickle cell trait and they'll be like, oh, well, I don't have any pain. I'm like, okay, but how are you fatigued? Oh yeah, I'm fatigued all the time, or I've been the doctor told me I'm anemic or something. I'm like, well, see, then just because you don't have pain doesn't mean that might not be connected to your sickle cell trait, because fatigue is number one.
So maybe I should get tested by my actual doctor because I've been trying to
You
figure out my whole life why I'm tired.
Amber, you got to go do the hemoglobin electrophoresis. If you haven't done that one, you and your husband, you got to go do that hemoglobin electrophoresis.
Okay.
It'll tell you if you have what type of gene and the percentage. Because when I started advocating, I was at this one park one time, and I was new at it too. So I was at the park and I did my talk, and this lady came running with her little son, and she brought him to me and says, "Sir, you need to talk to my son." I'm like, "Why?" Because he's always tired, and I thought he was lazy. And I'm like, "Oh my!" Now she's asking her son for forgiveness because she's been saying that he's lazy, and it could be because he's a trait carrier. She knows that, but
Uh-huh.
she was wondering why he was always tired or lounging around. And so my youngest daughter has the trait, and it's the same thing. She seems to be tired from her trait.
Uh-huh.
But her mom was like, "Oh, you can't be laying around. You lazy. She just lazy." I'm like, she comes home from school and she wants to sit down and like, I need a few minutes. And you're like, go tell her, take the trash out, go do it. And it's like, yo, she's a carrier. We have our trait gene gives us pain and fatigue. Like, give her some space. Like,
Yeah.
you're not lazy, but that's a stigma. That
Yeah.
becomes a myth or a stigma that we get labeled. as these type of people, and you have no idea that it could be that inherited gene that's causing that person to be fatigued.
Yeah, Hakab didn't know that you could have symptoms with just the
Yes,
trait.
sir.
Yeah, and my dad actually was a carrier and he had symptoms. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it all
So
just depends on if you're symptomatic or not.
yeah. Like I said, my mom said I had pains in my left arm since 2 years old. And I remember being 5. And
Mhm.
that's when they took me to the doctor and was like, "Oh, it's growing pains." And well, guess what? It wasn't growing pains, doc. It was actually an inherited gene, and so here we are,
Yeah, I've
55,
been
5
sick.
years old.
Yeah, I've been sick and I've been really just exhausted my entire life. I can remember as early as 4, wanting to sleep all of the time. And, granted, I was born with a heart condition, but they fixed it at 4. But I remember from that time on, I was just extremely tired. So
Yeah.
they've always said that I had chronic fat chronic fatigue syndrome because I had Epstein-Barr. It's a it's from the chicken pox. You get it from the chicken pox. I don't even know. But,
Yeah.
I've got so many things wrong with me, Farron. It's,
Yeah, you got it. You got to do that hemoglobin. I just put it in the chat. Hemoglobin electrophoresis is the blood work. It takes about maybe 7 days to get the results back. But
oh, Cherokee girl, you didn't
it
have to do
will
that.
it will tell you, um it doesn't capture all of the different deficiencies, right? But it'll give you the basics because
Mhm,
so newborn screening today, they do a lot of the test, sickle cell trait and disease, CF, autism. They do all those kind of different tests at newborn screenings now. But there are still some that you might have to, like, so with thalassemia, right? So you
mhm.
have to do the electrophoresis, and then you have to do the CBC because I think it's the MVC number. So if you
Is
have a
the
thalassemia, go
is that
ahead.
where they like spin the blood or do some kind of weird
Yeah,
stuff?
they spin it, they shock it,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
what my husband.
and
Yeah,
how
that's
it
what they did to my husband's stuff.
yeah, so they shocked it. The way they shock it is how those proteins mutate, and then they have the label of, oh, okay, this is thalassemia. But with beta thalassemia, what we're discovering is I met people because I was doing testing and mobile testing, and so we had people do the blood work with us. They get their results and they come back and say, "Hey, I didn't know I was alpha thalassemia. I knew I was a sickle cell trait carrier, but I didn't know I had alpha thalassemia trait too." Right? And then
Mhm,
sometimes that alpha thalassemia trait is not alpha thalassemia; it's actually beta thalassemia because when you do the electrophoresis blood work, you have to do the CBC
mhm,
because then the CBC will tell you if the MVCs are low or high or not. So
mhm.
sometimes you got to cross-reference the electrophoresis with the CBC to determine what's going on with your blood.
Okay.
So yeah,
A whole lot of letters.
it's serious. So when I meet people now and they say they're trait carriers, I ask them, when is the last time you had a hemoglobin electrophoresis? And if you haven't had one in a while or in years, go do it again and do a CBC so you can find out exactly what's going on with your
Mhm,
body, and then you can start making the determination. Because we want to rule out the trait. Everything's not sickle cell trait related either, right?
mhm.
You get 23 chromosomes from each parent, so we get all this other stuff we inherit. But at least we talk to our trait community. Make sure you do all the tests that you can do to rule out if it's your trait,
Okay.
and then go to the next thing. It might be it might be a white blood cell condition then, right?
Mm.
So, and even with the sickle cell, we have a song called Battle of the Genes, the red cells versus the white cells. So in sickle cell, I have friends that when they have pneumonia or a crisis, the white blood cells, your immune system, white blood cells rise up into the thousands because it's
Mhm.
attacking the dead red blood cells and all that. But guess what it does? It also attacks the good stuff, the organs and all of that. So now you're having like lupus. That's what lupus does. Lupus
Oh.
attacks the white cells, attacks the virus, but then it also attacks the good red blood cells, and then also attacks the organs.
Mm.
And
I didn't know that.
So with sickle cell, the red blood cells and the white blood cells do battle, because when those red blood cells die off, the white cells rise up. So I've had a friend that his white cells was like 27,000 count,
Mm-hmm.
because he was in a crisis, and he was having, I think he had pneumonia or something was going on. But when he went to the doctor finally, his white cells was like 27,000.
So can you have lupus and sickle cell trait?
Sure can.
Okay.
And it's lupus and sickle cell. I've interviewed people in my community that have sickle cell disease and lupus, and trait and lupus. That's a red cell and a white cell deficiency.
Yeah, because I've tested positive for lupus 4 times, but they have given me a diagnosis of undifferentiated connective tissue disease, which means they don't know what's wrong.
Right. Yeah, they fibromyalgia. They label all kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
fibromyalgia, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Another form of arthritis and stuff like that. It's
Yep.
just different names. But yeah, the DNA. I did my DNA just to see, because I'm like, okay, I want to know where my trait came from, and so I did it, and all of my DNA is from Nigeria area. I was like, well, and they're number 1 with sickle cell trait. They're like 30 million plus.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, well, no wonder it makes sense that, I can track my bloodline to Nigeria and Ivory Coast and all those areas. Was like, no wonder.
Isn't Nigeria a mixture of a bunch of different? Yeah, because it's not an actual race.
Yeah.
It's
So all of my DNA is in that space.
Okay, so you're just a hodgepodge.
Yeah, of different settlers in that area. So it's like, well, no wonder my trait is I'm a trait carrier. So at least I could track where it came from. But,
okay.
Yeah.
So where can everybody find you? Actually, before we do that,
yeah,
I want to have a little bit of fun since we've had such a serious conversation.
Right. Before we do that,
Yeah.
I realized that, I have a lot of serious conversations, and it's hard to make them light.
Yeah.
But my life is surrounded with a lot of mental health, mental toughness, sickle cell trait, like suicide, veteran suicide, youth suicide. Like, those are real hard topics. And I'm like, I got to find an outlet. I got to go to some comedy clubs. I need to find something that, I can get my mind. Oh, that was good.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get it.
Yeah.
Where you want to go though? Where you want to go?
Okay, so I have quit asking my guests because I always forget, but since I got you here and I remembered, I'd like to know, have you ever had a paranormal, cryptid, or UFO experience that you would like to share with us?
Ooh.
And that can be a spiritual, encounter as well, because it's out of the normal. It's supernatural.
Yeah. I will say yes. I mean, I've been in some places that I have friends that are in that space, in that conversation, and they're like, yeah, there's a spirit here. It slams the door, it opens the door, it does this kind of stuff, and I'm like, yeah. And then I was like, oh, that's what that was? They're like, yeah, that's what that was. So, and then check this out. I was in Las Vegas. Shouts out to Ed Blunt. I went to Las Vegas with Ed Blunt, and he's creating this flag football, extreme sport, flag football, different than any other ones that's out there coming up. So he's there, and he's meeting this. He met this lady, and she was on TV. I don't know her. I don't remember her name, but she was a white lady, and she did a paranormal show on like TV. Blonde hair, right? So I'm here. He's next to me at the bar, and then he's talking to her. She's over there on the other side of him, right? So I'm just watching TV, whatever, eating, having my drinks. He goes to the bathroom. So she's there, and she says, "Excuse me." I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "There's a lady, a black lady, standing behind you, kind of tall." I was like, "What?" She said, "Yeah, I sense this lady that's a tall black lady and she just wants you to know that you should, to comfort you, that everything is going to be okay." And I said, "You gotta be." I'm like, that's Phyllis. That was my so Phyllis, she passed away in 2012. She was when I came into the sickle cell trait conversation, I flew to the 30th annual sickle cell disease conference in Maryland. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I got my package. I made a brochure. Like I'm ready to go. I'm about to introduce myself and let everybody know that who I am and I'm ready to take on this conversation. I go there and I'm able to speak and I introduce myself and I hand the lady my flyer and I'm like, I'm here to represent sickle cell trait, and it was like dead silence. And I'm like, and so one doctor, she raised her hand and said, "Come here," and I gave her my brochure and she looked it over. I sat down and I remember meeting Phyllis and she says, "Farron, this is a sickle cell disease conference. They don't talk about sickle cell trait here." I'm like, "But don't you have to have the trait to have a child with?" She's like, "Yeah, but this is a disease organization. They don't address the trait." I felt so defeated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? She says, "Well, Farron, I run this SCD." So she had an organization called Sickle Cell Disease Soldier Network. So she SCD Soldier Network. Her husband was in the Army, and she called herself a sickle cell warrior with her disease. So she made it an organization called SCD Soldier Network. She says, "You can come and work with me. I know how important sickle cell trait talk is, so don't worry about that. Work with me, and I'll train you. I'll develop you." And so that's why the Deborah and Barak story in Judges chapter 4 is our blueprint, because I'm Barak in that passage and she's Deborah, the prophetess. And Barak was the soldier who was called to fight the war on Sisera. Well, so in the passage, she's Deborah, I'm Barak, Sisera is sickle cell disease or anemia, and Jabin is the trait, and Jael is the community. So in that passage, Jael kills Sisera in the tent. Well, that's where sickle cell hides out, in the house, in people's homes. So my job is to mobilize the community and bring the awareness. It's up to the community to take that conversation and do whatever they do with it.
Yeah.
So she got that from a prophet at an interview she went to go do one Sunday night, and she called me on that Monday like, "Farron, get your Bible." And that's when we read it, and we're crying like, "Oh my God, my life is in the Bible. Like that's the blueprint of my work." Right. So when the lady telling me that there's this tall lady behind you and she wants me to tell you that, she's comforting you and you're going to be okay, I was like, that's Phyllis. And I always, and I don't use the word always a lot, but I always said that Phyllis is like my Jedi Knight in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like she was more powerful in the spirit world. And so check this out. So I call Phyllis's daughter at the bar. Like when the lady says that, I call her daughter and like, "Hey, I'm in Vegas," and this lady is telling me that she saw your mom like next to me, and her daughter says, "Farron, the light in the closet flickers on and off. My mom is letting us know that she's here with us." I was like, she says sometimes the light flickers or the fax machine will turn on or turn off, or it'll like, I'm like, yeah. And I called her randomly, like, "Hey, like this lady says she's seen your mom next to me." Like, so I believe it. I mean, I believe it. And I've experienced what I've experienced. I don't really, talk much about it, but I'm well aware of the spiritual realm, and there are things that go on that, just gotta call it what it is, and what it ain't.
Yeah, Joel wanted me to do my first live stream, and this was a while back.
What?
And he wanted me to do my first live stream a while back, and I was scared to death, and I was like, I don't know what to talk about on a live stream. And so I got to thinking, and I started praying about it. I was like, okay, what can I talk about live where I actually feel comfortable enough to actually speak about it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to talk about being a Christian and having a paranormal experience. And so my first live stream, if everybody goes and looks at it, it's I probably look like a deer in headlights, but I'm explaining how, as a Christian, I grew up in a really weird situation, but I went way far away from that situation and completely forgot about ghosts and spirits and stuff like that, other than the Holy Spirit. And even then, I think I was still kind of locked in that mentality of, oh, all that stuff's done with, until Jesus comes back or whatever. Anyways, so yeah, I was in that mindset, but then, my dad died in a very tragic way, in our home, and so we started experiencing paranormal things. And my question has always been, well, when you're a Christian, and what happens when you're a Christian and the paranormal comes to find you and you're not looking for it? What do you do? Because nobody wants to talk about it in church at all.
Of course. Of course.
So,
They say get the oil and cast out the evil spirits. But like you said, it's a conversation that really needs to be, had so people can get their revelation of how to deal with that in their life, right? Because we all have a revelation for what that word means for us, right? And a lot of times it's common and across the board, but there's sometimes that word is given to you for the body of Christ to deliver that message for the body, right? Everybody's got their different parts of the body that they address. And like I said, I know what I've seen, and I know what I've heard, and I know what I've seen. And I'm like, all right. And they're like, so you're like, make sure you get the oil and bless your house and things like that. And even my buddy Jody, he said they grew up on a Indian
burial ground.
Yeah. And it was off the chain. And he was a child. Like it was off the chain. I was like, for real? He's like, bro, it was crazy. And they didn't even know that that was a burial ground until they started seeing stuff and experiencing it, and they had to get out of there. But hey, there is a spiritual world, ladies and gentlemen.
There is. And I think it's kind of funny how Christians are are closed off to that topic when most of what we talk about in the Bible or what's being talked about in the Bible is in the spiritual realm in some form or fashion. So it's like, why are we pretending that doesn't exist?
Yeah.
So
it's a lot.
Yeah. So I just, I have unfortunately been through this. So I'm not necessarily going out trying to actually find a whole bunch of information, but I would like to know. And that's why I ask people, if they've had any kind of situations, just for my own morbid curiosity, I guess, because I'm just trying to figure out why it's happening to me.
Hey, no, let me tell you one more. This is a good one. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot about this one. So my buddy was in the military, and he was living on Fort MacArthur base, and then he moved off and got an apartment in Paramount. And so it was funny because when he moved in, I went over to see him. I'm like, hey man, did you ever ask why the people moved out? And this is random. I was like, because I'm like, people move out of apartments all the time.
Yeah.
For this particular one, I'm like, did you ever ask why the people before you moved out? He's like, no, I didn't ask. Well, check it, Amber. Oh my gosh. There was, come to find out. So one day I'm there and he's downstairs and I'm upstairs. I'm in my depression state. Right. So I'm just in the bed. I didn't get out of bed that day until probably like about 5 o'clock in the evening. So I finally get up out of bed and I walk downstairs. And he's sitting on the chair on the sofa watching TV. And he's like, well, finally. I'm like, what? He's like, why you been walking up and down the stairs? You either come downstairs or you stay up. Why you been running up and down the stairs? I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? He says, bro, I've been hearing you come halfway down the stairs, go back upstairs all day. I'm like, bro, I've been in the bed, man. This is the first time I'm getting up. He's like, what? So we laugh it off.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, Amber, we find out that there was a baby that had got killed in the apartment next door years ago. And the family that lived in the apartment had a little girl, had a little baby. But one day they were gone. And we heard a baby crying next door. The bathroom, our bathroom door handle would you go take a shower. We go take a shower, we close the bathroom door. Well, you hear the knob turning. Like, hey man, stop playing with the stop playing. I'm in the shower. Stop playing. Like that's how we would react. Or you would pull up to the apartment and it was on the street side. So you pull up and when I pull up, I hear the radio in my room on. And then I go inside and it's off. Like, I just heard the radio. Like, so what we discovered was not just in that apartment. So there was a baby that was killed in the tub.
Oh, wow.
And then there was a kid who got shot on the sidewalk. And then there was another person that got killed in the complex area. So the neighbor's son, we were at the bottom over here. They was at the bottom across. The neighbor's son finally told us, he's like, man, sometimes I go to the refrigerator at night to like get something to drink, and I feel a presence in the kitchen, right? And so we would like meet up in the area and like barbecue, like do a barbecue at night. We'll do like tacos. We had a good time, tacos and stuff like that. And so one night we was talking like, hey, you know what? This is weird. And so when we expressed ourselves, everybody started to be like, yeah. Like, what? Then that's when we heard the story. Oh, yeah, well, there was a kid that got shot right here. There was a murder in this apartment right here. And so it's like the spirits were going through the apartment complex. And so one night we're all downstairs. One of our soldiers comes over to hang out with us. He gets off work. He goes, be like, man, go ahead and take a shower. We outside. He comes down like, man, who's playing with the bathroom door? We're like, what are you talking about, bro? He's like, man, somebody was playing with the knob. I locked the knob. He said, somebody was turning the bathroom knob while I'm in the shower, bro. Why y'all playing? Like, bro, we've been out here barbecuing, bro. Nobody upstairs playing with you. And we would look at each other like, oh my gosh. So that day, then he's like, I'm running up and down the stairs. The little child was running up and you can hear the footsteps on the stairs.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, bro, we got to get out of here, man. like no wonder they moved.
Yeah, no wonder. Yeah, no,
that was like, no wonder the people moved out of here, bro, because they was being they were scared to death. Like,
how long did you stay there?
Well, that was I lived in my house, but I lived an hour away or so from work. So what I would do is when I was in that state of mind, I would just stay at his place. And then I would come home because I live far away. So I would end up staying with him a lot of the time, like probably like 4 or 5 days out of the 7. And during that time, because I was in the bad depression. So, but yeah, I think it was a couple years. I was like, bro, you gotta move, you gotta get out of here, bro. This place is. And so the son would say that the teenage person that was roaming around that part of the apartment complex, he saw, like, he felt the presence. He felt the presence, and he would hear like a whisper. And he's like, I turned on all the lights. It's like, man, I was like, oh my God. But each neighbor, when we had that talk that night, could say, oh yeah, I've experienced this. Oh, I experienced this. The neighbor in the corner, oh, I experienced this. And we're like, and no one had never said anything about that. And we've all had the same. And so we asked the neighbor, hey, were you home earlier? And they were like, no, we saw them come home. Like, there was a baby crying next door. Like, we heard a baby. Like, no, we've been going all day. Like, yo, we heard a baby crying in the apartment next door. Like, wow. So
yeah, kids are scary.
I don't have any fear around it, but it is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't.
Yeah, and you just kind of have to roll with it because there's nothing you can do about it, and except for remove yourself from the situation.
We do, bless the house and stuff
Mhm.
like that. But I think about my dad. I think about I've smelled. So okay, here you go. Now you got my thinking. When my dad passed, um, when I went to his apartment he had been past 4 days.
Mhm.
So the smell, you could smell. I don't know how they did that. This you could smell. I smelled the smell of his body decomposing outside down the street when I parked my truck. Like, how have y'all been here and y'all ignored the smell?
Oh,
He was
wow.
dead 4 days.
Wow.
So the smell was incense, his cologne, and of course the body
Mhm.
decaying, right? I smelled that smell in my house. I went to Big Bear one year for 4th of July to get away,
Mhm.
and I smelled that same smell in that home.
Mhm.
It's a very I'm never gonna forget that smell. It's
Yeah.
my dad. That was my dad's passing.
Mhm.
I've smelled that smell quite a few times.
Mhm.
And then I was sitting here the other night, and I swear I smelled my dog Daisy. Like I'm like, no, she's passed. She's been put down since 2022,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like I know that was Daisy's. I had a bath. I need a bath smell. Like
Mhm.
smell. Like I need to give her a bath smell. And I
Mhm.
smelled it the other night, and I was just like, you know what? It's cool.
Uh-huh.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these things are and how nobody wants to really talk about them, but a lot of people experience them.
Well, yep.
So thank you for playing along with me.
Hey, I'm with you.
So Farron, before we go, can you let everybody know where they can find you?
Yes. If you want more information about the sickle cell trait conversation, my mission in life, wdconsct.org. If you want more information about my community outreach and the things I'm up to, farrond.com. And then in my name right here, you have the at Farron Dozier on all social media platforms. If you type in that name, you'll find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Yeah, that's it all leads back to me somewhere.
Mhm.
And again, very blessed to be able to have these conversations and just share life.
Mhm.
I realize that I have an experience of life and I have an activity of life.
Mhm.
And my experience of life is all these my experience of life is sharing from the word, the Bible, who I get to be, and reconciliation and self-forgiveness, like the ministry part of myself. And then there's the activity of life, which is all these radio shows and causes and stuff that I get to do in life. So I live my life in those two dynamics of activity of life and experience of life. And they're not the same, let me tell you.
Mhm. No,
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Not the
Okay.
same.
Well, thank you, Farron, so much for coming on and
Thank you. Thank
educating
you.
us a little bit about
I appreciate
sickle
it. I had a
cell.
good time. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and you are welcome to come on anytime
Yeah.
and talk about it. And I'm going to go get a test done just to confirm whether Ancestry was right or not.
Yes, yes, please do, because the way the stuff that you just labeled was named is like, yeah, you definitely need to figure that one out for sure, DNA wise,
Yeah,
blood work
yeah.
wise for sure. So thank
Well,
you.
yeah, luckily the VA will do genetic testing on you if you need
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
So, yeah. I've already
cool.
had one for the BRCA gene, and I do not carry that, so that's a great thing.
Yeah,
But okay, Farron, well, thank you very much, and
thank you, thank you.
yeah, and thank you everybody for joining us
I
tonight.
appreciate
And I really hope that everybody has a very blessed evening, and that you go out and do something really good to change the world for the better, please.
Please.
Have a blessed night, everybody.
God bless. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.